university or something.
Not quite. I'm at a conference though. I'm at the who am I at?
A systems thinking conference?
Not quite a systems thinking conference like what you did there. No, I'm at the, although I suppose it should be. I'm at the Professional Insurance Agents Conference in Alexandria. So I'm not too far from you, actually.
Interesting. Well, maybe I'll come visit.
We should get lunch.
Let's do it. Let's do it. But first, I think we owe the Association Transformation family a little, I don't know, is it preview? It's not a preview. We've already released this.
It's gone out. It's gone out. It's been published. It's been published a couple of weeks.
It's our newest white paper.
Ta-da.
Yay. So I think it'll be interesting to pull back the curtain and let people know how we decide, because we've been pretty busy this year, putting out a couple white papers now. And, you know, we have a list of topics and we kind of go back and forth. And I don't know about you, but I don't always pick the topic that I'm the most expert in. I pick the topic to explore based on what I want to learn the most about. And that's why I voted. Yeah. That's why I voted for, you know, for systems thinking and associations through a systems lens, because it is a bit different than we approach strategic thinking and even, you know, organizational assessments. And so, yeah, it's been out, downloaded. We're going to chat about it today. And Andrew Chamberlain elevated, Elisa Pratt, Brewer Pratt Solutions.
Just in case by episode 115, you don't know who we are. Just in case.
You know, don't be so pomp. I mean, what if someone's joining us just because of this topic? There are people who are systems people.
I'm one of them. Are you a systems thinker? No, seriously, are you a systems thinker?
Do you have a shirt that says?
I should do, shouldn't I? I'm a systems thinker. Yeah.
I'm a systems thinker.
There's some nerdy Star Wars thing there, I'm sure, that you could tap into. Are you though? Are you a systems thinker?
You know what? I am now.
Okay.
In that I would say I was I could be a holistic thinker. I could be an interconnected thinker, but systems thinking is different and maybe the better way to sum it all up. What I love about the systems approach is that nothing can hide. Yeah. There aren't pockets and silos and drawers that you can stick your dirty laundry in. It has to all be taken together if you're truly going to make change, if you're truly going to advance the organization as a whole. So when we use the word holistic or the ecosystem, you know, all these words that get tossed around, I think they do so without truly respecting the systems approach. And I've worked at organizations where, you know, one side of the building made money, one side of the building spent money. You know, there was the events, there was the government affairs, there was the education, there was the, you know, there were all these silos, and each was very set on self-protection and so I like this as a way to approach, whether it be an association, whether it be a for-profit entity, whether it be a sports team. I don't care what it is, but I'm really excited about this aggregation of a lot of existing research that we've brought together for anyone to use. And I wonder why you had chosen, you know, we agreed on doing this, but what was it about this, or where did it kind of rank for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, yes, you know, we do, contrary to what some people might think, we do discuss and agree before we record and before we publish.
Most of the time, there are a few things we agree on.
But I think it was really interesting doing the research. You know, when we were doing the research and writing this white paper, it struck me that I know that I'm a systems thinker. I'm a natural systems thinker. And when I was doing the research around this, it occurred to me, I thought, well, it was a kind of revelatory, you know, moment when I thought, I thought everybody thought like this. I thought everybody approached business analysis, business management, business development, organizational piece. I just assumed wrongly.
Come on, we've had enough clients that we know not everybody thinks like that.
Well, I mean,
that's my favorite page. It's the page that has like all the The strategic thinking versus the systems thinking. So here's a little
Yes.
preview for those of you who haven't downloaded yet. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying, but I suppose, for me, it was like, well, okay, we'll do it. You asked, well, why, what was the kind of driver for me? But honestly, on this one, I thought, oh, well, we did the micro learning one. I wanted that. We did that. We pushed for that. You said, oh, let's do systems. I was like, right, okay. And actually, I'm thinking, oh, right, okay.
She was right.
Maybe people don't know about this, and that was kind of revelatory for me. And I was a bit of self-reflection, a bit of self-learning there. That actually, I can't, and we're always guilty of assuming that people see the world the same as we do. But actually, when I was then, reflecting further, I thought, yeah, but now I have to say that this is the way everybody should be thinking when it comes to association
it
management.
does, but that's where I want to, we've lived in this topic for a few months now, and we've put out our white paper.
Yes.
And I'm a believer in this, but I wonder if it's fair to expect systems thinking all the time about everything. Because
no, it's not.
It's not all or nothing. And I
No.
think we need to give ourselves grace and find the gray sometimes, because we have to engage people who don't think like this. And we have to be able to explain it in a way that is not off-putting, that is not all or nothing, that we can move people towards it, because you're not just all circular or all linear. There's times,
Absolutely.
there's situations, there's middle ground. And that's what I don't like about the academic nature of this, is that it presents it as,
I'm sorry, you're saying you don't like the academic nature of our white paper? You're saying you don't like our white paper?
I love our white paper. I'm talking about systems. We can come from systems thinking. Well, systems thinking is, been around. And I'm just saying, in the larger context of systems thinking, I don't like the all or nothing of it.
And we talk, the reality is that, everything's a system. Everything's a system, the human brain, the body, the world we live in, this hotel lobby I'm sitting in is part of a system. The hotel chain, the community, the supply, all of it is, there's interconnectivity everywhere. And I think, one of the things we do talk about in the paper is understanding what our boundaries are. And we talk about the swimming pool versus the ocean. Because the reality is you can become massively overwhelmed if you approach everything through a systems, with a systems thinking approach. If you look at everything through a systems lens, you'll be swamped, and you'll become paralyzed in any decision making.
Yeah.
And so understanding what your boundaries are, boundaries are in terms of how you're looking at the system, what system you're looking at, and understanding its subsystems, is absolutely critical. But I think, an association, lends itself perfectly to, a systems approach to management. Recognizing that not every, some decisions are just decisions, right? Let's not going to be massively sophisticated about everything all the time. But actually, when you think about, the various components, of an association, it's not a hub and spoke. It's far more, it is more sophisticated. I talk a lot about the hub and spoke, particularly when I'm talking about data, for example. You've got your members are at the core, and then from that piece, you've got your, financial management, events management, community work, guidance, advocacy, lobbying, conferences, education, qualifications, etc. But it's not a hub and spoke in the sense that everything is interconnected and has an influence, be it great or small to varying degrees, on everything else in the organization. And I think, that was for me when I started to kind of get that, unpick the research. Yes, begin to understand the academic argument versus the the pragmatic realism of systems. At that strategic level, I think the systems perspective is critical.
And this is where I want to always bring back, and I try to do so when we have podcast guests or any large scale topic, because again, we've gone all in on this. I mean, this is 24 pages, and it's a meaty is a meaty presentation to bring someone to our perspective. But so what? Like, systems thinking, what do you do with that? So you come to appreciate your association as a system. And that's what we're advocating for. I wanted this podcast to be an opportunity to pull out the so what. So what's next? You get that appreciation, you see it that way. So what? What do you then do? What's then the steps that you take? Is it subsystem by subsystem? Is it understanding each subsystem first and how it impacts the larger system? Is it testing change in one area of the system to see how it impacts the others?
Yes.
What's the point of systems thinking? I know, but we can't say yes to everything, because if I'm an association executive, I have to do something with this. I have to take a first step.
Yeah, I understand. For me, the value of the systems thinking approach, the systems approach, is about impact. So it's recognizing that, what I do here on, a piece of work, whatever, an output, does have an impact here. We're very, very good at, in our, I think in every sector, I would probably suspect, we're very good at making, thinking we're making small tweaks that, are just having a direct impact on, subject A, when actually there's always residual impact throughout the organization of just a small tweak. And so first of all, I think it's about understanding how we realize impact as an organization and where that fits within the hierarchy of our outputs. It's also about resource efficiency. So it's about actually how do we maximize our inputs so that our outputs are translated into tangible outcomes. So, and again, understanding the relationships between the ways, maybe the way our teams work with one another, the way, we work with our suppliers, our providers, our speakers, whomever, understanding the dynamics of those relationships and then how we can influence that to maximize our resources is an incredibly helpful mindset to adopt.
Yeah. Well, and I like to think of it as less about problem solving and more evolutionary, that all the little shifts that we make to survive and improve and succeed, all of those aggregate across the totality of the system to achieve organizational evolution. But I do like what you're saying about resource application and hopefully the setting of realistic expectations, that you don't expect your credentialing program to surge if your membership or your marketing and communications foundation is not solid. If that you can set realistic expectations and not necessarily look for problems, but look for opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
To maximize those relationships, those intersections. And for me, a lot about systems isn't what's connected, it's where energies and efforts are aligned, and that there's a parallel momentum throughout the system. That's what I think about it in a very geometrical terms. And there's a lot of circles and a lot of lines touching other things. Systems thinking is a chalkboarder's dream, but I like thinking more about parallel movements and the alignment of maybe interdependent or maybe just somewhat intra-influenced. I'm making up words now, but
I think maybe I do know what you mean. I think maybe
I have a lot of coffee this morning. Wait,
you've created, I think, a third way. It's like a bilinear system.
Are you mocking me?
No, I'm not actually, because it's interesting. Because from what you're saying there, I recognize the linear in that process, but actually systems are by their very nature not linear. And yet I think you've actually come up with
you're talking about it as a two-dimensional thing, and I'm
Hmm.
talking about it as a four-dimensional thing.
Oh, well, you can smell it as well.
What? I didn't say four senses, and plus we have more
I
than
was
four
thinking about,
senses.
4D when I go to in the theme parks, and it's like 4D, you get sprayed with
Yeah,
water and you can
mists and smell and heat. Yeah, this is not that. But and again, this is what I do is I start to think about it and go off into, I'm not trying to spiral here, but this is where you have to pull yourself back. And there are those who have tunnel vision, tunnel thinking.
yes,
And
yes.
then I think there are those of us who it becomes more expansive to the point you're equally paralyzed.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Systems thinking is messy. It's messy.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's
You need like a
complex. It's
life, you need
complicated.
something
Yeah.
tied around you. So when you jump into the abyss, someone can pull you
Pull
back.
you back out, 100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. You can end up going down all sorts of rabbit
Yes.
warrens and never finding your way back out. It's really interesting, though, and I agree with you, because a lot of the language around systems talks about it being a problem-solving tool. And it's really interesting because, like when we were doing the research, I'm thinking, I don't see it as being about problem solving at all.
No, I think it's
At all.
understanding. It's an understanding necessary to then solve problems, and more
Yeah.
importantly, to know how the solving of that problem is, that drop of a pebble in the pond, how solving that problem is going to either positively or negatively impact the rest of the system.
Mm.
It's also interesting to think of it in almost like a medical term. So you're gonna give your organization medicine for this one symptom, but what is that going to do to the rest of the organization?
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that.
So what do people? You're a CEO, you're an association CEO, and you're coming out of COVID. You're done reacting. You're ready to have something proactive. You're ready to kind of take control again of your organization's future. How do you apply systems thinking, and what do you want to get out of it?
Well, gosh, that's a massive
Well, I'm
question.
trying to bring it into
But
real
yeah,
life
yeah, yeah,
terms.
yeah.
You read this white paper, you are thoroughly inspired, you are fired up about systems thinking. What's your first step? What's your first next step to do something with it?
Well, and you need to map, you need to map your organization.
Okay.
It's fine for us to start talking about systems, but actually you need to thoroughly understand
Yep.
the relationships between the various components. You need to identify where those links are.
Yep.
They'll be there regardless of whether we see them or not. But actually having and it will be a complex systems map
Oh yeah, we've done that
the
for organizations. I mean,
organization.
we've had the
Yeah.
whole steampunk poster on the whole wall with all the pieces connected. I mean,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
doing that. I love doing that kind of stuff. And it's, again, my question then is, then what? Then what?
Well, once you've got that map, I think then you need to, well, you again, you're this, all right, in this scenario, you're the CEO. Well, it's not on you to just, you can't then, or let me rephrase that, it's completely unrealistic and unfair to then assume that everybody else in the organization will see it, will understand and appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of the systems thinking success of a systems approach is around the training and development of staff and your volunteer team. I mean, systems in an association context, when we're talking about this, I think systems is very much, I don't want to say top down is wrong, but you have to start somewhere, right? You have to start somewhere in mapping your organization. So you've got to start with your strategy and see how that filters and how the systems filter through the organization, how strategy filters through the organization. How
I would start with the system before you start with the strategy.
I think strategy is part of the system.
But strategy is kind of the air around the systems. It's like the lubrication on the gears.
But the system needs to exist to support the strategy, not the other way around.
The system comes first, right?
No, the strategy comes first. You would never build your team around, you would never build your strategy around your team. So why build your strategy around your system?
I guess I'm referring to an entity that already exists. You're
Yeah,
coming
yeah.
into something pre-existing. You need to understand your systems.
Okay, all right, okay, yeah, no, that's
And
fair enough. Yeah, yeah,
understanding
yeah,
that
I get you.
first, it's like
Yeah,
decorating a
yeah.
house. You're not going to decorate a house until you have the blueprint.
Well, you say that.
You're right. I mean, I defer on taste and design to you. Yeah, right.
There are various.
You're like in Masterpiece Theater in your sweater in that chair reading your white paper.
Is that bloke with the beard? And he always has
Oh,
guests on. And he talks to them about their careers in theatre and everything.
oh,
Is that
that's
that?
like the artist studio or something.
Ah, yeah.
The
That's not
actor's
what you mean.
studio.
That's not what you mean, obviously.
No.
Right. Okay. Okay. So I think in terms of adopting a systems think, yes, adopting a systems thinking mindset. Absolutely. Okay. Map your existing
Yeah.
system. Absolutely. Your
To
existing
me, that's the first,
components.
right? It's the first, easiest, most plausible step
And
for a
that is,
senior team to do, for a CEO to do, for a consultant to come in and help you do.
but how do
And
you
then I think,
understand? But I think, sorry, I was saying, I think it's critical to understand how you understand that system. It's not simply, it's not merely, it's not merely the various departments or the
of
various
course not.
outputs that we deliver. It's the skills and the expertise. It's the human capital that we have, as well as the
It's
financial
your
capital, as
assets,
well as the
it's your
it's all
products,
of
it's
it.
your processes, it's your structures. Yes, I agree. And that's why, again, I think you need to do that first, because then you can see what's
100%,
missing, what you haven't
100%.
accounted for.
Yep.
And I think by doing that, the problems that exist or the lack of connectivity, the lack of alignment bears itself out during that process.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Because this is a cultural piece. Fundamentally, I argue that this is a cultural piece in the organization.
Right.
You
I
know,
agree. I
you
agree.
know,
But it's often not going to be there. You're going to have to
yeah,
create it
yeah.
by earning trust in this philosophy and making things better because of this approach.
Yes.
I think you need to pick a
Yes.
low-hanging fruit problem to solve, to address, again, we're not saying solve problems, but to address
Which is
through
your strategy.
systems. Use
Which is your strategy.
right.
That's which,
So what's our call to action? I mean, we have a call to action section at the end of the white paper, but what are we hoping? What are we hoping that this approach, bringing this paper to the nonprofit world, is going to do to advance the sector?
I think our call to action is to first of all, is to recognize the inherent value, or rather, let me rephrase that. It's the inherent systemic nature of the association.
Yeah.
To recognize that it isn't just a systems change is actually a cultural change. It requires investment, time and investment, energy, resources into supporting the development of our staff and of our leaderships. It requires coaching. It requires training. It requires dialogue.
Well, and likely the way that you've structured your organization through staffing and departments and budgets, and that is all opposite of that. Everything that you've done to this point has actually worked to build fences to.
And I can imagine a scenario where, yes, absolutely, 100%. I can imagine a scenario where you're effectively, putting the cat amongst the pigeons, and there's a lot of fear about, well, are we now talking about that actually my department is being, dissolved? Am I actually now going to be subsumed elsewhere? And I think that's why I think a lot of this is as much about hearts and minds, but I think it's also about, and it's also about sort of articulating your expectations of how your teams will work. And being able to delegate and articulate an expectation in that delegation that when you and your team are making a decision about X, Y, and Z, I expect you to be adopting, a systemic lens. I expect you to be thinking about different perspectives. I expect you to be basically just, expect you to be having a go. I expect you to be having a go. But I think also,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I think also then the piece around recognizing and just constantly reminding yourself of the question: if I do this, if we do this, if we make this change, this maybe a seemingly small tweak to what, to the system, how will that, or will it, first of all, ask the question, will it impact another part of the system? And
Yep.
how? And again, that's all about engaging with, it's about engaging with your colleagues, with your teams, with your volunteers to identify that. This is as much about risk
Well, having
management.
those
It's as
brave
much about,
conversations,
yeah,
not letting
yeah.
one department make decisions without that scenario discussion, without that what if discussion. And what if discussions are scary. I was working with a client and they wanted to do an assessment of their member service department, and they were thinking it as a department instead of as an output.
Yeah.
And it became obvious that member service was something that almost all staff engage in one way or another.
Yeah.
And we had to break it out of a departmental mindset into something more broad and unique to different service areas instead of static budget lines or verticals. This is going to be a lot for associations. I know I want to take on strategic planning a little differently because of it. Instead of having these strategic pillars, having things that are more, that are more integrated with each other, parallel in their momentum and their direction. I mean, I even use the word pillars. I think I want to kind of stop using that. That seems so
well, yeah,
firm and locked and
isolated from each other. You have 4 distinct or 5 distinct, whatever it is, they sit separately. Yes, they all eventually go to the same place, but it's not, they're not isolated. So yeah,
well, I always thought of it
agree.
as holding up the roof or holding up, the entity, but I think I'm going to start changing even just my I think I'm going to start integrating systems into
likewise.
even the strategy piece.
Likewise, absolutely. And I think, and again, you say, well, what's the call to action? I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
It's as good it's as good a place as any, but actually it's probably the area. And if you're not engaged in systems thinking, but you are about to embark on your next strategic review and invest time and effort into the strategic development of the organization, now is a good time to get those principles of systems thinking and strategic thinking, recognize that they complement one another and are necessary, I believe, for you to really recognize long-term impact. Yeah.
Well, I am really proud of this paper. It's our third ever, our third of the year. And congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. What would you say? I know we have a list of a lot of other topics that we are curious about as industry professionals, as lifelong learners. What would you say if we put out a question to the association transformation and let them pick from a couple topics or vote? What if we had a people's choice for the next white paper?
All right. Okay.
I know you're not big on, independent American-led democracy, but
oh dear, you don't even get me started on that.
Sorry, my son's learning about the Declaration of Independence right now, so
let me tell him the truth about everything that led up to that moment.
Look, if you want to write the history, you got to win the war. Okay, so
my God, you'd be great on a tour bus in Boston. Actually, you'd be really good. Actually,
that'd be fun. I think I would be a good retiree tour guide. All right. Anyway, you're distracting me. The question is, can you and I come up with 3 or 4 topics and put those options out and let our audience pick what next topic we dive into?
Okay.
You good with that?
Yeah. I'm not going to push against it. I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that.
Well, I'm going to count the votes, so you aren't going to get to pick what you really want, irrespective of what people say.
Aren't we just going to put a poll on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Well, then, how neither of us.
That's what I'm saying. You're not going to be able to, to steamroll this with what you want it to be.
Okay, that's fine. We'll put it out. We'll publish, and then we're publishing in January. So
it'll be. We have time. We have some time, but. Okay. So check out associationtransformation.org for our systems thinking white paper, for our other white papers, AI. What else have we talked about? We've talked about AI and strategic planning, micro learning, and who knows what's next. We will post it to LinkedIn and give you all a little say. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. Thanks for downloading. Give systems thinking a chance. It may seem a bit overwhelming, but once you start to see the invisible threads through everything, it's actually pretty powerful. So thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Andrew wants to chime in.
We never ever plug what we do on this.
No,
Not
because
really,
we're
not
not
really.
cheesy salespeople.
But we do offer, but we do come in and we do work with teams on understanding what systems thinking is and the systems approach to management.
Well,
So if
of
you've
course,
got
that's why
problems
we
with it,
chose this. It's also made us better at what we do. And I would hope all the associations that listen to us know whether it's strategic planning or membership development or organizational assessment through the thinking line, the systems landscape. I mean, we're here for you whenever y'all need it. Ask us questions, put us to the test, let us know if we can recommend us or someone else to you, but we're not going to plug that. This is not an infomercial, Andrew. So don't even go there. Okay.
1-800 systems.
And you get a free set of knives. All right. Seriously. Until next time, check out this white paper, download Association Transformation wherever you get your podcasts, and put your members and your mission first.